I'm Cheryl Mays, and I'm your host of the Author's Lounge. And today I am so excited because I have with me CaTyra Polland, who is the author of Dear August, Love August. CaTyra is an editor of the she's the Editor Knows Best podcast. She's also the creator of the Writer's Paradise, which is a writing forum for authors and writers. She's also the founder of Mocha Chocolate, a trademark brand that celebrates, uplifts, and empowers dark-skinned girls and women. And she was listed in Rochester's Business Journal as 40 under 40. So you definitely want to join us. When we return after this commercial, we will meet Miss CaTyra Polland. So excited to have you on the show today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited as well.
You know, I did your introduction, and let me tell you, there is no rest for you. You are just busy, busy, busy. What I did not get to announce is that Dear August, Love August is not the only book. Your first book was Professionalism, What's That?
Yes.
Then there was Keep This in Mind, What Black Women Think About, and Editor Knows Best, which is in the works, or is it done?
It's in the works right now in publishing.
So again, when do you rest?
I do rest. I have to get better at it. Definitely have to get better at self-care, but I practice. I like to exercise. I love traveling. So I do have some downtime, but again, that's something I'm working on.
A work in progress, right?
Yeah.
Well, so tell us about you. What is it that you do? What is it that you love doing? We know you love traveling, as you stated, but tell us a little bit more about CaTyra the person.
Yeah, so I would say I'm definitely adventurous. For example, I moved to Savannah, Georgia, a few years ago all by myself. Excuse me, I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have any friends there. I just picked up and left. I took a Job Corps, not Job Corps, excuse me. I work for Job Corps. I took an AmeriCorps position. So it's kind of like Peace Corps, but here in the States. So I was placed with a local nonprofit down there for a year where I did financial literacy. And then when I was done, I decided to stick around. So I did live in Georgia for 3 years. I'm also interested in, I love to volunteer. So I'm on a couple of different boards here locally. One of them, one of them is the Rochester Black Authors Association. So that one we just got our 501c3. So we're starting to build up some of the events that we're doing. We already do an expo, the Black Authors Expo every year, but we're looking to expand into other events as well.
Again, no rest for the weary. So now, out of all of these things that you're doing, when do you find time to actually write? How does that work for you?
Yes, so a lot of the times my writing is spur of the moment. I have to get the urge to do it. So I remember one time I was on the plane to Atlanta and I wrote like 5 or 6 poems. It just kind of ignites. There's really no routine that gets my juices going. It just comes to me. So I will think of something. I'm like, oh, I'm going to write that down. Usually it's poetry. So I'll see maybe a picture or I'll just have a thought and then I'm able to just write away. But like I said, it's in spurts. So I wrote a few poems maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's really spread out for me. So but between I think I was in Atlanta Atlanta last summer until now, I've probably written like 5 poems. So again, it's not necessarily a large quantity that I write, but of course, I like to focus on the quality of the work. Where other people can write, 20 poems a day, mine is definitely more spread out. So the inspiration, sparks randomly for me.
And so now I have to ask, because when I look at these books, they are all different. So there's not one genre that you focus on.
Right.
So now your very first book was The Professionalism. What's that?
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So that book all of the books that I've written so far have been nonfiction. So that's the one thing they do have in common. So that book really is like a 101 guide for how to dress for success, resumes, cover letters, conflict management. And also I talk about code switching, which is being able to adapt who you are to fit in, assimilate, get a promotion, etc. But the book really covers the different elements of being an employee and also an employer. Things that you need to know, customer service, how to deal with conflict in the workplace. I have an example in there, like I went to McDonald's and they got my order wrong. And I talked about how I responded to that. I brought the receipt back, I was respectful. And then I compared it to if I had gone in there screaming or yelling or cursing, they would have to replace my order because they got it wrong, but I would have gotten a different response. So I have examples like that, and showing that it's not just when you're in the office. Like, I don't know who was in that McDonald's. It could have been a future employer. Who knows? So I really I pull on my personal experiences and offer advice to professionals who maybe have forgotten or never learned it, because it's not something they teach us in school. So I wanted to create a resource that people could pick up and peruse through fairly quickly. It's under 100 pages, and learn, the important parts of professional development and how to build your reputation. And I talk about informational interviews, which are similar to job interviews, but instead of being interviewed for a job, you are interviewing someone about either the position they have, the organization they're with, and you're getting recommendations from them or information for them. So when I was in Savannah, when I finished my term, I wanted to do fundraising. So I reached out to some local fundraising professionals and I had informational interviews. I asked them, how did you get into this field? What would you recommend I do if I want to get into this field? Are there books or resources that I can read? What are the pros and cons of this field? So I don't know that informational interviews are used as often as they should be, because they're really powerful. And not even just for young professionals, but if you are a seasoned professional looking to transition into a different field, an informational interview could be helpful. So maybe you're a professor and you decide you want to go into the banking industry. You can reach out to a bank teller on LinkedIn or, another resource and have an informational interview and get that background information. So again, I'm just providing different examples of how to grow yourself as a professional and also as an entrepreneur, so that you can be successful. Because again, there's at least not in my experience, I've never taken like a professionalism 101 course. And I think that's definitely worth the time for everyone. And that's what I wanted to do with my book.
I think that's awesome. You think about it and you're right. There typically is not a professionalism course, and you learn from your mistakes.
Right.
So to be able to have kind of a guidebook that says, here are some of the things that you should look out for. Here are some of the techniques that you can use to actually allow you to better represent yourself is something, especially college students, it's something that is so needed in that industry. And so then the next book is Keep This in Mind, What Black Women Think About.
Yes. So that's a journal. So it's a space for Black women to be able to reflect on different questions. There are questions in the book. So one of them I ask is, how have you experienced racism? I also ask about sexism, some of the topics that maybe you don't want to discuss openly in public, but you need to get your thoughts out or your feelings out, and you can put it in the journal. So it's really introspective and just getting, again, your thoughts and emotions out on the page. A very personal space for Black women to be able to, express the different things that we go through that, again, you may not want to talk about. So I wanted to create the journal just to give us another way to have also therapy. It can be very therapeutic to be able to write these things out, but not necessarily share it for fear of judgment or being misunderstood. So I wrote that as just another tool and resource for us. So that's what inspired me to create the journal.
That's awesome. Oftentimes people talk about writing a letter. You know how you write a letter to yourself for, what it is that you want to accomplish or because of something that you've gone through. And it's not about, to your point, right? You don't have to share it. Right. But it's just getting those words out and being able to see the words. It is therapeutic and it does something for you. Definitely. And so both of these books are available on Amazon.
Correct.
So, yes. Guys, we haven't even begun all of the conversation that we're going to have with CaTyra. But what we have so far, you have the ability to get on Amazon, both of her prior books, which is Professionalism, What's That? And Keep This in Mind, What Black Women Think About. And when we return, we're going to talk about Dear August, Love August, because that is a collection of poetry.
Yes.
DreamSpire Books Virtual Launch Box. Everything you need for a successful virtual book launch in one place. Timelines, press release templates, social media advertising info, graphic design, an interview on our streaming network, and a personal coaching session. Don't forget your thank yous and so much more. Visit us at www.dreamspirebooks.com for more information.
We are here speaking with CaTyra Polland, the author of Dear August, Love August. And so now let's talk about the book. It's a book of poetry.
Yes.
Now, where did this book come from? And the title, where did the title come from?
Yeah, so the title, my birth month is August, and the last name of my family is Love. So I wanted to combine that, but I also chose Dear August, Love August because it's like a letter to myself. So that's how I chose that title. And the poems in there, they ranged from middle school through more recently, like within the last year. So some of the poems in there are poems that I wrote in high school. In my senior year, the teacher, we really focused on different poets, and we would study the poets and then mirror their writing style. So a lot of the poems in there were built on, the different poets that I learned about in high school. That there's a lot of those in there, but then there are a lot of free form and freestyle poems in there as well. I like one of them is called Mocha Chocolate Girls, and that's how I named my brand that you mentioned in the introduction. And that poem, again, it empowers and inspires dark-skinned girls and women, because colorism is still an issue. It's something that I experienced, when I was in school. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of girls and women do still experience that. So in that particular poem, I'm just offering words of encouragement and letting us know that we're beautiful, that we should be celebrated, that the fact that we're overlooked or discriminated against is wrong, and we have a right to stand up for ourselves. So in that poem, that one's very personal for me, just because, I've had that experience. And then, I have so many different poems in there. Another one is called, I think it's called Dead End, but it kind of talks about a relationship that I was in that I knew wasn't that I shouldn't have embarked on a romantic relationship. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So in that one, I just talked about ignoring like the red flags, like so many people do,
Mm-hmm.
knowing better, but still being in that relationship. I also talk about, I have a poem that's dedicated to Black men. It's called To Black Men, TBM. And I just talk about the way that the world sees Black men and also the way the world portrays them. But again, and always wanting to be positive, I offer words of encouragement, letting them know you are not the statistics that they try to boil you down to, that you're not a monster, that you are powerful, that you're valuable, and just, realizing that there's a narrative that is painted and that what we see in the media is very intentional. But again, recognizing that, Black men, deserve to be celebrated and that they bring so much to the table. So, again, I also have songs in there that I wrote. Another one that's kind of similar to Mocha Chocolate is called Naturally Me. So I just talk about, again, being confident in, whatever skin you're in, however your hair grows from your head, because of course texturism is also, an issue, globally, not even just the United States, but people who have 4C or kinkier hair, feel like they have to hide it or relax it or, alter it in some way in order to be accepted. And again, that's also something I talk about in professionalism. What's that in the code switching chapter, where I'm talking about all of the different ways that some groups have to, or they don't have to, but it's portrayed that if you don't code switch, then you won't be successful, you won't be accepted, etc. So I do talk about texturism, in that code switching. So again, a lot of the poems that I've written are, things that I've observed or things that I've experienced myself. And I wrote the poems. Again, for me, it was therapy, but I decided to publish them because I wanted to encourage other people. I know I'm not the only one who has been teased because they have dark skin or grown up in a household with domestic violence or, and not, So I just wanted to create, a book that people could read and learn from, but also relate to and realize that they're not the only one, with the struggles that, because sometimes you might feel like you're alone or feel like it's only you, but reading a book of poetry is a way for you to know that you're not, without necessarily announcing it to the world. It's still another way for you to deal with that. And reading poetry can also be therapeutic. So I wanted to create that just to connect with other people.
Oftentimes, I believe that things that you go through, your experiences are literally testimonies for other individuals, so that they know that they too can overcome and to come through something. A lot of times we just want to know, I can get through this and come out on the other end. And so I have to ask you this, and I know these are all of your babies that's in this book, all of these poems. Do you have a favorite one?
I would probably say the Mocha Chocolate. And again, I talked a little bit about that already. Just bringing colorism to the forefront and recognizing that, it's a global issue. It's not just African Americans that struggle with that. And it comes out of course, the Eurocentric, ideologies of whiteness is the most beautiful. And unfortunately, it's still very prevalent. I don't know if you saw the video of the little girl who was getting her hair done, and she looked at the camera. She's like, "I'm so ugly," and she starts, she bursts into tears, and her hairdresser was trying to console her. Now, she was of a darker complexion, so I can just imagine, some of the things her peers may have said to her about her complexion. And I think she was 3 or 4. So the fact that she's a toddler and she has this belief that she's ugly, I think that's really terrible. And I would bet money it's tied to her complexion. Maybe not wholly, but I'm pretty sure a lot of it would have to do with that because, you know, she is a darker skinned child. And I just, you know, I wrote the poem for all the women who dealt with that when they were younger and the women who deal with it now, because it's not like it just stops when you become an adult. There are plenty of people who still discriminate, you know, in the dating world. If you're not a certain complexion or you're darker than a paper bag, you know, there are a lot of people who have discriminatory behaviors. Oh, I don't date people that dark. And there are a lot of people who still have that ideology and believe that, or, you know, people who think it's okay to make fun of people, or even on the other spectrum of that, to treat them like, a lot of people like to use the word exotic. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, so I believe that, you know, we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to colorism. And I wrote the poem to bring it to the forefront and share my, you know, that I've experienced that, but also acknowledge I'm not the only one and, you know, continue to uplift us and be positive about the situation.
I love that because, you know, to your point, especially young girls, you know, everything that you see on television kind of, it kind of magnifies, you know, who they are supposed to look like in order to be accepted. And I love when you talk about code switching, you know, what do you do in order to be someone other than who you are when literally you are beautiful. You are to love yourself and others will love you when you love yourself.
Right. I agree.
So I love this book of poems. Guys, listen, you've got to get this book. It's available on Amazon and it's called Dear August, Love August. And because I think that's just, you know, when you think about just the title of it, that's literally can be a mantra for anyone. You know, I could say, Dear Cheryl, love Cheryl. That could be your mantra for the day. You know, when you're feeling like, you know, something is happening and you're not able to be in control of it, or something is happening and it's not going your way, or, you know, anything that's negative, just to remind yourself to love yourself as you are, you know, as you were created. It's just a beautiful sentiment of who we should be each and every day, and to teach that to our young girls.
Yes.
You know, that's just, it's amazing. So thank you for sharing this. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to also talk about some of the other things that you're doing. Yes. And so talk to us a little bit about the podcast.
Yeah, so I launched Editor Knows Best in March of this year, and the podcast focuses on primarily editing and writing. So some of the episodes I talk about, developmental editing, which is like big picture editing, making sure the plot makes sense. There's no redundancies. The characters' names are spelled right throughout the text. I also talk about copyright editing, which is like punctuation, spelling, things like that. So I give like a 101 to either new editors or authors who maybe want to edit their own work or just know more about what their editor will do for them. I also talk about the expectations for the editor, like not expecting your editor to read your mind. I'm an editor, so my editing boutique is Love for Words. So I decided to write this 101 guide again, just to give more information about editing. Sometimes it's a little mysterious. People don't know what it entails, don't know that there's different types of editing, etc. So I also, again, talk about expectations, being honest with your editor. One of the most important things that I tell my authors is that the story belongs to them. So even if I recommend something to you, you don't have to take that recommendation. Now, as a professional, I'm offering, you know, either a revision or an edit or a suggestion that will enhance your work. However, it's your work. So a lot of the authors might be afraid that their voice will be removed if they work with an editor. But just to assure you, if you work with a good editor, that won't happen. And just being honest with your editor. You know, you just have to make sure you tell us what you want. And then even like mentioning also, don't expect your editor to provide you limitless rounds of editing. You know, can expect to pay $100 and get 6 rounds of editing. So being being realistic, also making sure that the editor is a good fit for you. So one of the mistakes I made early on is that I didn't do sample edits, and I didn't do like a consultation up front. So there are times, you know, I would finish editing the whole manuscript and the author's like, this is not what I wanted. Where if I had done like a consultation up front or a sample edit, we could have outlined what their expectations were to make sure that I could meet their needs. So after learning from those mistakes, I now implement that so that you make sure it's a good fit. And that's also very important. So, you know, the editor might not be the editor for you. So make sure that you have the conversation up front, and you see a sample edit. And if you're not satisfied, say that up front. Don't, oh, it's okay. And then at the end, you have all these things to say, you know, regarding your dissatisfaction, when in the beginning you could have just said, I don't think this is going to be a good fit. And that goes for the editor as well. So if you know, are going to be working or potentially working with a client, but you're looking at their sample manuscript and you know that's not something, you know, you specialize in, or it's not just something you don't want to do, just be honest with the person and let them know, you know, I don't think we're going to be a good fit. So that's what the podcast covers. And then I also interview authors on the podcast as well.
Okay. I think that's such an important element, though, is that you and your editor has to be on the same page. Yes. There has to be that conversation where you can, you know, exchange ideas and share with them what your intent is, you know, so that it stays in context.
Right. Very important.
Awesome. And so now you also have a brand called Mocha Chocolate.
I do.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so Mocha Chocolate, as I shared, it's named after the poem that I wrote. And again, the brand is to uplift and empower dark-skinned women and girls across the globe. So I launched the brand. Right now I have t-shirts and mugs. So it's just a way for us to, you know, celebrate our beauty and show the world that, you know, we deserve to be recognized as well, and that we are beautiful, that we're valuable, that we're valued. And I had a brand photo shoot, so I'll be releasing pictures of the models with the shirts, and that's where it is right now. I would like to expand to other projects, but I'm just starting with that, you know, building the brand and the reputation, and having the shirts and mugs for right now. So again, I'm looking forward to, you know, expanding that and, you know, getting that out, you know, across the globe.
That is amazing. Like, guys, here you have it. CaTyra Polland, author, poet, entrepreneur, podcaster, all things unique and all things universal. And so now they can go to your website, which we have here on the screen. Correct. They can go to your website and they can look at Mocha Chocolate as well as get the books also.
Yes, my books are there as well. Yes, there are also, you know, photos of different events I've attended. Writers Paradise is on there, the forum that I hosted. You can order my books on my website as well. So that's another option for you. And see any upcoming events I have, learn more about my business, see some of the clients I've worked with. And you can also contact me via my website. All of my contact info is there. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Polland LLC. Facebook.com/Polland LLC, and then Instagram is @Polland LLC. So feel free to follow me and, you know, check me out.
Absolutely. And that's what you want to do. That's how you find out what's coming up next, because listen, this lady is on fire. So she is not sitting still. So you definitely want to follow her on Instagram, on Facebook, visit her website. Yes. Where you have an opportunity to see the books. You can actually see the brand collection and have an opportunity to take, you know, the young folks there so that they have a positive image, a positive self-image of themselves. And yes. Oftentimes they need to see people that look like them doing positive Absolutely. Things to Absolutely. Know that they are indeed able and capable. So CaTyra, thank you so much for joining us on the Author's Lane. It has been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, guys, we look forward to seeing more from CaTyra Polland. So I'm going to stay in tune with her, and I'm going to go on there because I always like to know what's happening next. Mm-hmm. So we have an opportunity to follow her and see how her journey continues. And you also do poetry, slam poetry.
I do. Well, I don't do slam poetry. I like to watch it.
Okay. So you probably see her watching it, or at least posting it on her site. But a poet at large and a poet by heart, which is truly what you are, in addition to all other things. And we thank you again for being here on the Authors Lounge. Guys, definitely go to her website, go to Amazon, go to DreamSpireBooks.com. You have an opportunity to get her books there also. And definitely join us when we have authors that are visiting with us, because you never know who you are going to meet on the Authors Lounge. We bring authors that share their experiences, they share their hearts, they share their pieces of work, and they share their life. And so that's something that allows you to connect. So you go far beyond who's that picture on the back of the book to literally, I know who this person is and I want to know more. So thank you for joining us here on the Authors Lounge. Have an amazing day.
Thank you.